702.
The Big Interview
With Bongani Bingwa.
18 after 7, he was killed at school. He died in a classroom, murdered by his mates. It's a tragic story out of the Eastern Cape. A matric pupil stabbed to death during a violent altercation at a school in Humansdorp. 6 teens have now been arrested in connection with the case. It's horrifying, it's heartbreaking, but one of the questions we must surely ask is, why are our kids carrying knives or deadly weapons to school? What can be done about it? And what about the psychology of bullying and being bullied in our school? Are we missing something here? Firstly, I've got 2 guests, Dr Saths Cooper, a clinical psychologist, and also Terrence Khala, who is the Department of Basic Education Director for Communication and Research. Let me start with you, Dr Cooper. I mean, quite apart from who you are now in the public, you, of course, are somebody with struggle credentials. You fought for the society that we have become. The idea of children with weapons at school, does that shock you?
Yes, it does, and at the same time it doesn't, because ours is a very violent society. One of the most violent societies that is not at war, and we are failing our children at all levels. The system that we currently have is one where there's such great insecurity that kids feel and adults feel. That we teach our children the behaviors that they end up with, and that is arm yourself, protect yourself. The gun culture, the knife culture, and other weapons that we use are legion. We've allowed them forever, not merely recently. And it has become dangerous for some of the reasons you've mentioned, bullying, intimidation, etc. But importantly, we have not learned how to resolve issues without resorting to violence. And violence becomes the method of first response rather than thinking through what is happening.
Yeah.
And our system just simply does not allow for that.
Right, because if the adults have to resort to violence to be listened by the leaders in the society, what do you expect their children to do? I'll come back to you, Dr. Cooper. Terrence Khala, you're listening to all of this. Firstly, in terms of the figures the department has, are we seeing this kind of thing on the rise, these types of incidents? They often go viral on social media, but what data do you have?
Good morning to you, Bongani, and good morning to the Prof and to all of the listeners of 702. Bongani, we have seen quite disturbing trends in terms of the acts of violence in schools. For us as a department, one act is one too many. And firstly, our hearts go out to the family of the slain learner. Bongani, we have unfortunately seen quite a drastic increase. I think it is obviously in the age of social media easier for it to go viral and for things to be picked up, but the statistics are also showing us at a school level that unfortunately this continues to be quite a large trend. But I think what's important to note is that as a department we do have really proactive steps that we've continued to take. I mean,
Terrence, hold on. Before we get to those, and I'm sure you'll let me know what you're doing, what does your data show? How many of these incidents can you talk about?
Well, Bongani, to date this year, we have seen quite a disturbing trend, as indicated. I mean, I don't have a specific number for you, but what we have seen across provinces is a rise in the reporting, particularly in provinces where we do note that communities are unfortunately violent. I think the biggest aspect for us is the fact that it's unfortunately we're unable to divorce schools from the communities within which they exist. So where we do have very violent communities in nature, the schools within those communities do tend to reflect that. So we do have what we have called red zones that we've picked up, and those zones are in provinces like KZN, provinces like the Eastern Cape and the Western Cape, and that's where we try and focus most of our attentions. And I think when the opportunity comes, I'll speak to you a little bit more about those proactive steps that we have been taking.
I'll come to you in a moment. One of the criticisms, Dr. Cooper, is that we no longer discipline our children. We don't raise them the right way. This is why this has happened. Discipline has gone out of the window, both in the home and the school. And people will often point to things like corporal punishment, for example, now being illegal. And they'll say, you see, that's how you end up with kids like this. What's your response?
I think that is a red herring because, if we bring up our children using violence, what do we expect them to do? They learn violence. Violence is a learned behavior. It isn't an innate behavior. We ought to be able to use our cognitive, our reasoning, and other abilities to resolve conflict, because conflict is a part of life that doesn't have to end up violently. But with the images constantly bombarding us on media, all kinds of media, that violence works and that we see it around us. I mean, you turn on any newscast, you turn on any online media platforms, and violence is the order of the day. That violence has been endemic in our society. I've known it forever, and I'm
Sure. I mean,
in my 70s.
Yeah, and I accept that South Africa has long been a violent place for all sorts of reasons. It's not the first time that we are hearing of kids who almost walk over bodies on their way to school. That's what it was like in the years of struggle, for example. The 6 suspects that have been arrested in this case are aged 16 and 17. These are children.
Yes.
Right? These are children. How does the justice system begin any sense of accountability, and is rehabilitation even possible?
Well, the first question you asked, the justice system deals with this as a criminal matter. We're not looking at the causes that lead to these children doing what they should. I recall just over a month ago in KZN, I think it was in KwaMashu, there was a police raid in schools. Now, I know in the US, for instance, and in other places, they have metal detectors in schools. That is not the way we should be going. We should be changing the culture for our children. We are failing our children because we're allowing them to learn all these habits which we have. And it's a no-win for our kids because we do it. Our kids will do it. There needs to be a change. I dare say we deal with GBV. That is part of violence. It's a violence that is so ingrained in the fabric of our society. We look at these issues symptomatically. We need to be looking at the causation. And if the school statistics that are available, we can map out that the places where these things tend to happen are not suburbs, generally. And we also call these other places townships, the ones that the three of us have grown up in. But we now live in suburbia. And in a lot of suburbia, this doesn't happen. But it happens in those townships. So why is it that in the 32nd year of our democracy, we still deal with our kids as if they contain a problem? And I'm not meaning only the formal education system that the representative is speaking about. Our entire socialization needs a revamp. But if we've got the kind of examples at the top where people resolve these issues with violence, it becomes part of what we do. So we should actually have a complete rethink. We're failing our children. We should be able to do something very different.
Yeah.
There's a qualitative approach. There needs to be problem-solving skills. The thing we do most in life is relate to each other, but we're not taught how to relate. And heaven knows, we've got things like life skills in our curriculum. They fail us. We need to really relook at how we bring up our children, how we socialize them, and importantly, how we educate them at both the formal and informal levels.
Right.
And those townships should not be the places where this happens, and that's the majority of our citizens by far.
Dr. Cooper, we'll have to leave it there. We lost Terrence Khala. We tried to call him back, and I think his phone just went to voicemail. I'm assuming either his connection or his battery died. But it's an important conversation that we must have, and we've got to ask ourselves, are the tools that our children are given to deal with pressures around them, the violence they see around them, absent parents, all of these societal ills, are we equipping our children with the right tools when kids carry knives to school with the intention of harming somebody else, or at least them not being harmed? That tells you our society is broken.
Current events, developing stories,
Tough questions.
your voice making a difference.
This is Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.